Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask Geoff and Lauren. We're here to answer your questions about the double bass. It's late night in Australia where Lauren is. It's first thing in the morning in the UK where I am, but we're doing our best. Hopefully Lauren's not too dark and I'm not too bright here. And we did an episode recently where we were talking about choosing your bass, and we spoke at length about our instruments, how we found them, what we recommend people look for in double basses. So if you want to check that one out, follow the link. But we also had a follow-up question as well, which is, hey guys, I wonder if you could tell us about how we should pick our bows. And that's Trick Daddy who asked that, who's, I'm sure he's asked a question before, I recognise the name. And we also
absolutely has.
Yeah,
can't forget that name.
It's awesome, isn't it? And we also had a bunch of other people that have asked as well about bows, because it's such an obvious thing. So Lauren's going to be the expert on this, but I'll maybe start off and tell you how I found mine. My old teacher, Georgi Sinsiewski, he had a colleague that was selling a German double bass bow. He's recommended it. He said, Geoff, it's a great bow. It's a good price. I mean, I've still got no idea if he's telling the truth, because it's so hard to evaluate a bow in terms of price. I was like, well, yeah, I guess that sounds about right. And at the time, it was a lot of. Well, I mean, it was a lot of money actually. It was. I remember thinking this feels like a big thing to buy, especially because bows really don't look like much, and it's. I think, if you look at a really old instrument and then a brand new one, you can tell the difference quite quickly. But with bows, I find that, like, if you're looking at some older bows, I find it really hard to work out. So that's my key recommendation: is that essentially, if we're talking about a more expensive bow, I would recommend, or in fact any bow really, ask your teacher, ask your friends, local players, and they may have bought one online, like a cheap budget one, but it works. They've maybe had it rehaired. I mean, that's the other thing. If it's, I bought a bow recently, a cheap French bow, and then on eBay, because I wanted to do some French bowing stuff, practicing Lauren's course material from her bowing course, and and anyway, I had it rehaired, and the rehairing cost more than the bow did. So, it's...
So isn't that's the truth?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then, of course, I've got my really expensive German bow as well that I played. There's some ideas. I think really looking to other players and local teachers, and, of course, local stores as well. But the chances are most people don't have a local store. If you live in New York, or you're lucky enough to go down to David Gage or Goldstein or whatever, great. But if you're, where I am, there isn't a double bass shop around the corner. So go on, Lauren. How about you? And tell us how you found your bow as well, and then what you'd recommend for people starting out.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to try to position myself so I don't look as creepy in this light, but I think it's kind of a losing battle. But anyway, I've actually had 3 bows since I got my first instrument. And the first bow was a bow that I got from just my local shop. I got it when I got my bass.
Yeah.
And it broke. Like, this has never happened to me. I've never talked to anybody where this has happened, but I was in the practice room and I just heard it crack and it just snapped. And it didn't snap right in half, but it just cracked, and it was done. And I've never talked to anybody that's done that other than just somebody that's thrown their bow against the wall. So
I've never heard of
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was just, the first bow that I chose, and that was what I used. And then I went back to that shop and said, well, this happened. Okay, do you have another one? And I got another bow that I liked. And the way that I chose that one was that it was a little bit lighter than my first one.
Yeah.
And the stick was a little bit thinner. The tip wasn't as heavy. And it just felt like it glided a little bit better. And then I used that for 5 or 6 years. The bow that I have now is a bow that I bought from my teacher, Mr. Braditich, and he got a bunch of these bows from this maker in Brazil, and it's the actual brand is called Gosti and Bottoni. It's a Brazilian maker, and it's he just loved these bows. He just loved them, and he wanted everyone to have them. So he bought a bunch of them. And then I asked if I could try one, and I just loved it. And so I just bought it off of him. And it's great when you do that. Like you were saying, you want to talk to your teacher. I mean, I trust Geoff's opinion, obviously, so much. And so I really believed. And, it was a less expensive bow. And it was good for me at the time. I am in the market for another one, but, that's
me too.
So, you just you pick your battles. But the way that the way that I went about it, the first two bows were just sort of like passive, and then this bow that I have now, that was the first one that I actually paid attention to, like what I was looking for. And the reason I chose that one, I mean, aside from Mr. Braditich, letting me borrow it and everything, I mean, it just got this punchy tone that I hadn't experienced before. And the weight, it was a lot lighter than the other bows that I had. And I think people mistake the weight of the bow. They think that having a heavier bow will give them more weight. And if you like the feeling of a heavier bow, then absolutely. But generally, it just doesn't work that same way, So at least in my experience, some people will probably have different experiences.
I think
but
volume is a really like volume, tone. I think they're two of the key things to be listening for. Like how easy is it to draw a big sound, and the change of tone I find so interesting because they do different bows sound different, and I think particularly when people are starting out, they don't even consider that. They're just thinking about the bass and then the strings and then the playing.
Exactly.
And then hang on, the bow actually changes the sound as well, and of course playability.
And also like a great bow on someone's bass might be horrible on yours. I really think that like it's just the bow and the bass like matching up together. The bow is a separate instrument. Like I really believe that 200%, but they have to work together as well, know. So, and you also want to think about, I mean, things to consider are the wood, but also I think there's just so much that people can just get really, really bogged down with. Like, do I get carbon fiber? Do I get wood? What kind of wood do I get? What color hair and all that kind of stuff. And I think that really, you can take all that into account. But when you're trying out bows, once you get to that point, just think about how it feels. Think about like if you're playing something and you don't like it, figure out what you don't like about it. If you can figure that out, if it's too heavy, if it's too light, if you don't feel like you have control, whatever. But I agree with your suggestions. Talk to your teacher if you have one. Talk to somebody in, your local symphony. Email somebody, in a symphony or, even at a shop and just kind of see like what they have. And just go with what feels good to you, what sounds good.
And if anyone, I'll tell you what I'd really like to hear about, if anyone particularly has bought a beginner bow from a store, even like an online store or what have you, and they've had real success with it, they like it. Because I know people that have bought really cheap bows and they've been fine. With the one I bought, actually, a French bow, it's absolutely fine. Honestly, it sounds fine. It's really good. Right. And it was really cheap. And I've also played ones that have not been fine, that were really cheap. So I know it's a tricky thing to do, but just let us know, because I get asked this a lot about where we find bows, and just let us know your story below. Join the conversation. Lauren, thanks for joining us as always. It's nighttime in Australia now. I can see it's getting dark outside. The cars out there.
Sleep.
Yeah, that's right. We'll let you get on. And thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.